Welcome to the show.
Hi, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. We had a really good chat yesterday, right? We caught up for quite a few hours and we really got into things, and it was such a fascinating chat that you and I had, and I'm so glad to have you on the show. Rania, for people that don't know who you are and hearing about you for the first time, who is in your own words?
I would say I'm a coach and a mentor. I can talk about the business side of things, but I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm
Yep.
really ambitious. I've had an incredible career in the corporate world. I absolutely loved it for many years, but obviously things happened for me, which we'll discuss. The turning point where I decided to completely change my life and go all in on my business.
We've spoken about your career and your background. We had a really good chat about that yesterday as well when we caught up. And I think you're being very modest by not elaborating on that further, because you have had a very successful and interesting career. As I find, like with most entrepreneurs, hey, when you start looking at their background and you start to sort of unpack what's prompted them to take this change of course, going from a 9 to 5 to the entrepreneur journey, generally, many of us have a very interesting background. What did the beginning of your current business that you're in now? So you left the corporate behind, you've gone into getting your own business off the ground. What did the very beginning look like for people that are out there and they're thinking about doing the same thing? They're in that 9 to 5, they're going online, they're seeing everyone posting, and they're like, I can't do this 9 to 5 anymore. I want to do what they're doing. Because it's not an easy journey. There's a lot of ups and downs. What did the very beginning of your journey look like?
There were two different breaking points for me, to be honest, and it's a process for everybody. I'm sure, as you know, probably about 3 years ago, I lost my mother-in-law suddenly to suicide, and that was a huge shock to me, to the family. My son was only a couple of years old. And I was in a really successful, happy career in broadcasting, but I became a mum 2 years prior, and of course it was COVID time. So I would say maybe the journey started to happen there, my spiritual awakening, if you like, when I became a mum and I started to suffer with postnatal depression. And then COVID, and my mum got sick with a really serious disease, a very rare disease, and I'm originally from Poland. They've not been able to come to the UK since, so that's over 5 years ago. And when I lost my mother-in-law, I had no idea that she was struggling so much for many years with anxiety, perhaps depression. She was on antidepressants for 15 years. And I think COVID didn't help. There's loads of other things that happen in our life, like our family life, that probably didn't help and unraveled everything for her. And it was within 3 months, I lost two other members of my family. So it was like one death after the other. And it was literally weeks apart. They were weeks apart. So we lost my mother-in-law. We were on holiday in Poland, got that horrible call, jumped on the plane, left my parents behind, and yeah, had to deal with that. And a couple of weeks or so later, my cousin passed away of cancer at 35. And that was again like, what the hell is happening? I'm getting goosebumps even talking about it now. And she had two twin boys, 6-year-old twins, and it was a shock. And then my uncle passed away of cancer as well. So it was like boom, 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 like people dying around me. And it was a huge wake up call. And, I loved my career in broadcasting, but I started to question life, what's our purpose on this planet? Like, what am I doing here? I achieved an amazing career. I got to the place where I always wanted to with broadcasting. I was a project manager. I loved what I did. Broadcasting was my life. But probably it's a matter of different things, like becoming a mom and losing all those people in my life. That was like, okay, what's happening? And then my mom got sick, and it made me think, okay, what most of us do is we work 40 plus hours a week. especially moms, right? We feel the pressure to go back to work because of the financial pressure, especially after COVID, after Brexit in the UK. The cost of living went up very much for everybody. And I felt that pressure too. I had to earn more, you know, myself and my husband, we had to find the money to pay the bills. Otherwise, we'd lose our home and stuff like that. The nursery fees are extreme, as you can imagine. And I just started to feel, okay, is that how life should look like? And all this struggle, I was struggling, you know, and I didn't have suicidal thoughts, but I had dark thoughts. You know, I felt like, is this what life is? If that's what it is, I don't like it. And the thoughts started to scare me. They felt dark, you know, I felt like I was so overwhelmed by life, by everything that was happening. I wanted to jump in a car and drive off, like most of the time. Not that I didn't love my family and I would ever never want to do that to my little son, but I just felt like running away. And I feel like a lot of, especially moms, feel that way because there's so much pressure on us. And I thought, okay, I don't want to risk getting to retirement, struggling for 40 plus years, working most of the week, being exhausted all the time, not being present for my partner, for my son, because I was exhausted as much as I love my job. It's just too much. And I didn't want to risk what happened to my mother-in-law and to my mum as well, or what happened to my cousin. All of a sudden, you could find out you've got cancer. 2, 3 years later, you're gone. You could be gone tomorrow. You could get hit by a bus tomorrow. And I know that's really like tragic and drastic way of thinking, but it could happen. We don't have a guarantee we're going to be here tomorrow. And so
No.
all those experiences made me like, they literally woke me up. And I was like, what have I been doing the last 40 years? Is this what I really want? And I ended up going through the process of radical forgiveness that was connected actually to my cousin who passed away and her husband. He's gone through the process again. And I went through therapies, clinical therapies, but unfortunately they didn't help me. And in fact, they were pushing me further away from my partner. They didn't help my mother-in-law. And none of the clients that come to me, and I'm not, you know, negating clinical therapy. I'm sure it works and helps a lot of people, but it didn't help me. It didn't help my mother-in-law. For me, I think the system is broken. We only get interested in people when it's too late, when they're shouting loud saying, I need help. It's by that point too late. Somebody should not be left on antidepressants for 15 years. 15 years. And when she decided to come off of them because she thought maybe she doesn't need them, it was too much. The feelings came out, the feelings that she didn't deal with probably from 15 years ago when it all started. You know, that person should be offered therapy, but not just talking therapy. Let's get to the root of where the issue started. So in the same way, I started to realize that I was living my life how my parents wanted me to live, how the
Mm-hmm.
city wanted me to live. And it's not to blame my parents. You know, radical forgiveness, which is what I teach, is about letting go and understanding that they did what they could, you know, the best they could with the
As they
tools
could.
and the experience and the programming that they had. So it's about letting go. It's not about condoning bad behavior. If, let's say, someone was abusive, that's on a human level, that's not okay, of course. But on a
Mm-hmm.
spiritual level, it goes much deeper than that. You know, it's about believing that everything happens for a reason. Everything is a lesson. Every person that we come across and every experience is a lesson to heal
Yeah.
and get back to ourselves, because I strongly believe we come to the planet Earth as spirits and we forget who we are. In order
Mm.
to experience this human experience fully, we have to forget who we are as a spirit and experience loss, you know, death, grief, love, hate, you know, all the challenges, all the different feelings, and through them we can get back to ourselves, our true selves, who we really are deep inside, but we forget because we've been programmed by the society, by other people, and they're telling us, you know, I want you to become a doctor, I want you to become successful. But you know, as a young child, I was so artistic. I sang, I was performing, I painted, I wanted to play the piano. And you know, I was told, you're not going to make any money doing that, forget it, get a good job, you know, get a job that is decent pay and you can afford to pay your bills, just get your head down, work hard. And this is what I did, because you're being told to suppress your dreams, you know. So for me, I started to get to the bottom and unravel who I truly am, what do I want. And why do I feel like I need to continuously push and succeed all the time? So I had to get to the bottom of that. And yes, I'm still an ambitious person, but I was a people pleaser. I was a perfectionist. So getting to the root of why was I doing that? Maybe because I was being criticized as a child, right? And compared to others. So I never felt good enough. Most people have those issues with not feeling good enough and not feeling loved. So if you didn't experience love as you wanted to experience as a child, then that carries on into adulthood. And looking for that validation from others, whether it's a partner or anybody else,
Yeah.
to prove to us that we love ourselves, you know? So for me, I went through a process of radical forgiveness, and from the first session, it was just out of this world.
What is radical forgiveness for people that are hearing about that term for the first time? What does that mean exactly, and how do you break it down? How do you go through it in stages to reach the end result of healing, etc.?
Yeah, so there's 5 stages of radical forgiveness, but I'm
Yeah,
going to try and explain it in a simple words
yeah,
because it's not an easy process to understand for people. It's about getting out of the victim mentality because
yeah.
a lot of us, and myself included in the past as well, I was acting like a victim. You know, this happened to me. This is why my life is like this because I lost my mother-in-law. I don't have any help. I don't have any childcare. That's why I'm so burnt out. You know, all those things. I'm just giving examples, right?
Yeah.
It's about stepping out of the victim mentality and as well, like, let's say somebody hurt me in the past. I need to let go of that because people connect to I'm a victim. That's the identity, is the
Mm-hmm.
identity. I'm a victim and they live their life like this. So it's about letting that go and getting to the
Mm-hmm.
bottom of who I really am without this label of a victim. And then we're looking at the past, what happened to us as a child, you know, how we were raised, how we were programmed, what happened to us, what we experienced as a young child, because up until the age of 7, we are sponges. We just absorb everything that our parents are saying, that environment, TV, school, and we take it as a fact, right? So we kind of suppress who we truly are. So it's about getting to the root of again who we were as that child, what we had, what dreams we had, what we wanted to do, our personality, because our personality changes through adulthood if we're being reprogrammed and
Mm-hmm.
we've been told, let's say at school, be quiet, don't speak unless you're being asked. You know, in Poland, people were saying children and fish don't have a voice, so we weren't able to speak. We weren't allowed. Our opinion as children did not matter.
So when does your opinion start to matter? When can you start to
An
form
adult,
an
probably
opinion?
when you're 18 years old. And even then, in my society, in my culture, parents still try to tell you what to do. Even as a 40-year-old, I was still being told what to do.
Yeah.
And it's about, yeah, we don't know how to set the boundaries and be like, I'm a 40-year-old woman. Come on, like this is my life. I cannot live my life
Yeah.
how you want me to live. But I still lived my life how my parents wanted me to live.
But by the time you get to 18, you're fully formed. I mean, it's the concrete has been set. So how do you then get to, having had that background and experience, thinking that you started to voice your opinion, or was it a lot later than that?
I was very shy as a child, very shy, very quiet. And at about 18, 19 years old, things started to shift for me. I started to change. I started to think. I fell in love with English language and I had the dream of going to England. And, you know, I was looking at local jobs. My mum was saying, you know, you need to go and get a job. And the best job I could get at the time was in the factory where she worked. It was like a milk and cheese factory. And I'm like, I am not made for this. Like I'm made for something more than this. I'm sorry, watching my mum work so hard every day and not be around because she was always at work because she needed the money, so she'd always take overtime, you know. And I thought, I don't want a life like that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
made for more, and I absolutely had a passion for English, so I wanted to come to England. My mum was like, absolutely no, but I still applied. I kept pushing. I wanted to study English, but my parents couldn't afford to send me to uni and keep me in an accommodation and pay for it in another town. So I had to
Mm-hmm.
forget that dream, you know? And I tried another university, which they couldn't afford. They couldn't even afford to pay for a bus for me to go to uni at the weekend part time. So it was really Yeah, it was a
How did
struggle.
how did you finally get to the UK then?
So there was this, that was 21 years ago, there was this au pair, um, what do you call it, system,
Yeah.
opportunity. Um, and it was just before Poland joined the union. So I had to apply for a visa and it just popped up somewhere. And I said, Mom, I want to go. And she's like, absolutely not. You like my youngest child, you my baby. She wanted me out of the house. She wanted me to go and work, but not in the country.
Yeah.
But I didn't give up for about 2 years, I think it was. I went to uni, I tried, I hated it. You know, they treated us like shit, basically.
Oh, so uni in Poland or
Yeah,
uni
I
in?
went to uni in Poland for a couple of years. It was a private uni, tourism and hospitality, because I wanted to travel as well and see the
Yeah.
world. But it was so expensive. I felt the guilt of putting my parents through it. I just didn't have passion for it, you know?
Mhm.
And at school, I only paid attention to what I wanted to explore, which is the English language and the Polish
Right.
literature. Everything else, I was like, I don't care about it. So they thought I'm actually not a very good student, but I was. And this is what I feel we should be encouraging our children to do, is go after your passion, what you really
Mhm.
interested in. And so I left uni. I decided to drop out after in the second year, and applied for the au pair thing. And they got back and they said, we can take you on. It happened within a month. And I was like, Mom, I just applied. She didn't have money to pay for it because you had to pay the agency to come to England. But I was
Right.
like, I just have to go. Like, this is my dream. Please let me. And I just
Yeah.
kept going and going. And eventually she agreed. Within a month, I was in the UK.
Isn't that interesting? When it's your destiny and something is meant to happen, the tables turn so quickly. There's this force that takes over, and you're right where you're meant to be, which is kind of like what happened with you. So you get to the UK, you join this au pair program. What happens then?
Experience that I had, it wasn't ideal, but I knew
Right.
what was going on, and I knew that this is only a temporary thing for me to go and get another job eventually in the UK.
Yeah.
Um, and we then joined the union, so it was easier for me to stay. Poland joined the union, it was easier for me to stay.
Yeah.
I mean, I had so many challenges. I dislocated my knees, both knees, one after the other in the first year, and I couldn't walk. Like, I was bedridden for 2 weeks, and I got on a coach. I couldn't afford a ticket to go home to have a surgery, so I got on a coach for 24 hours with a broken knee, basically. Broken because I dislocated my knee, and I had surgery, and I didn't have time to stay in Poland for physio because I was like, I need to get back to my job. I go back, and then I broke my meniscus in my knee. My other knee, it just snapped, and I'm like, crap, I gotta go back again. And when I went back to Poland again, my mum threw away my coach ticket. And as an au pair, you were getting like £60 a week, so like bare minimum. But you know, you had accommodation and all that. She threw away my ticket, and she kept a secret for 10 years that she didn't want me to go back. And I was like, I knew it was you. So I went to
Yeah.
my dad. My dad helped me get like a duplicate so I can go back. I was this determined. I'm like, I don't care that my knees are broken. I need to go back. There's something telling me I need to go back. And whereas my mum was like, this is a sign you shouldn't be going back. You need to stay here. And she literally cried for 2 years, like 2 years non-stop, looking at picture of me that I'm in England, and she wants me back in Poland. But I was like, there's something telling me I have to be here and look for a better way of living. And I only stayed as an au pair for 6 months, and then I got a job at a pub for a month, and then I literally quickly built my way up. I went to work for a Marriott hotel. I was in reception, leisure center, and I was speaking really good English. Then I got a job at Pioneer Studios, which is where my media career started.
Wait, so what was the name? Pioneer
Pioneer
Studio.
Studios, where they make all the movies, like the Bond movies and everything.
Wow.
Yeah, so and I remember, yeah, I stayed there for 6 months, and then I moved up to London. I didn't want to work in London. I always lived outside of London because of there were bus bombings when I was working at Pioneer Studios. Loved the job, but they couldn't extend my contract, so I just applied for any job, like any admin role, whatever. And I got this job in TV. I had no idea what it was, what the channel was, what I was doing there. I just needed a job. But basically, I stayed in that one company for 15 years. And it was like sister companies that I moved from to. But yeah,
Yeah.
15 years service in one company. So that was the start of my career, you know.
Wow.
Absolutely loved it. And it was a man dominated industry because it was horse racing. So I had to become tough. I had to go from this shy, insecure girl to stand my ground, to become confident, to speak out, to be loud so I can be heard in this industry. So I think that shaped my personality even more.
That's that's not an easy thing to do, though. I mean, you say it like it's very simple. You just have to be like this, and this is who I became. But anyone that's been in similar situations knows that that is a lot easier said than done. So, how do you do that? How do you just say to yourself, right, like I've got to toughen up, I'm in a male industry and I'm here to stay? Like, what process do you go through, or how do you prepare yourself to become that person? Because a lot of people would like to wake up and be like, right, today's the day that I'm going to be that Rania. But no, it's not
I don't
easy.
know what it was. It was that drive to have a better life.
Yeah,
The same drive that made me come back to England with broken knees, on the coach, not having any money. I was so determined. I can't tell you because
yeah,
maybe it was my mom who prepared me to be so tough, because she was a tough cookie. And I
yeah,
think that's, I am grateful to her for that. So we have to look at the positives, even if they were some negatives. I have to look at the positives. She made me tough because
yeah,
she had to be tough. She had to go to work, even at her age. She couldn't stay at home. In the past, many years ago, women got to stay at home and the husbands went out, where the world started to change, when I was growing up. I
hmm,
think my determination, it was something inside me that was telling me this is what I want to do. And no matter what, I'm just going to make it happen. And don't get me wrong, there were things that, you know, you could call them sexual abuse and things like that happening in that industry because you're a female. You have to learn how to deal with those comments, how to manage it all, how to stand up for yourself. Nobody gave me a guide. It was, I
yeah,
think it just happened within me. I don't know where it came from. Perhaps it was from my mom, being a tough cookie. But she's very tough, she's tough. She used to like run around people because she had very high standards. So I think my high standards came from her, which I am grateful for.
yeah,
She's a very empathetic person, but she's very tough. And I think that's what had to come out of me. It was probably within me, even though I was a shy person to begin with. To come to another country, I had no idea where I was going. I've never even seen the people that I was going to live with.
yeah,
You had a phone call conversation, and a month later, you were in their home. Like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just, when I think about it, it's crazy. I packed my bags and went to another country. Like, yeah, I don't know what made me carry on, but something within me was just, I had that drive to do that.
Do you think sometimes God puts us on a path in life, and the bigger the calling is for you and your destiny, the harder the training grounds are to equip you?
100%. In radical forgiveness, we say, and I believe as well, we will keep getting lessons
Yeah,
all throughout our life. And if we don't do the homework, if we don't see the lesson's going to get harder and harder and bigger until we
yeah,
actually, like me, have that wake up call and be like, what the hell are you doing? Like, are you not seeing what's going on? Like,
yeah,
start living your life. And this was actually my wake up call, is those deaths,
yeah,
was like, what have you been doing? Even though from outsider's point of view, you've got a successful career, you've got money. Like, I wasn't rich, but I was comfortable.
yeah,
We could afford to go out, go on nice holidays. But even it got to the stage where we were on this beautiful holiday, and I was crying. I was looking at my son, and I was like, I'm freaking exhausted. I'm miserable. I just want to go back to the hotel room and cry and sleep. And I was like, this isn't a life that I want to live. Like, money is not everything. Burning yourself out, trying to do it all as a woman is not everything. And I think I 100% believe everything happens for us, not to us. And
oh,
it's
absolutely, yeah,
believe and stepping out of that victim mentality. Like, this has happened to me. Like, oh my, I could sit here and I could be like, oh my God, I dislocated my knees, I broke my knees, this has happened to me, and make it my identity. This isn't who I am. These are just the things that happened for me in order to shape me, become more resilient, this ambitious person, to kind of let me go back to myself. And it was a long process. It took about 40 years to actually get to who I truly am.
Do you think that there are parts of being an entrepreneur that you forced to face within yourself?
Think, based on what I've seen and heard, most entrepreneurs, they've had tough upbringing. A lot of us go through challenges. When you think about wealthy people, most
Yeah,
of them come from a really poor background and they make it happen. It's not handed to them, they make it happen. And I think those challenges, similar in my life, are
yeah,
shaping who they are,
yeah,
but that can happen to any of us. And I think if somebody's got an easy life, life's not
yeah.
easy, right? But if
No,
someone's got easy life, it's not going to shape them. It's not
yeah.
going to face them with those challenges that they need in order to truly shape their personality or come back to who they truly are.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I often say that when you see that there's challenges in your life, it's almost like I don't want to say it's worth celebrating, because when you're in the midst of it, there's nothing worse than having turmoil in your life, right? But it's almost like a message from the creator saying, great things are right around the corner and I'm refining you in this fire. So buckle up, get ready, because things are about to get interesting. Moving on, I wanted to ask you, what beliefs did you have to let go of to start showing up in business and in life with more clarity and confidence?
Definitely, I'm not good enough. That's one of the biggest limiting beliefs that most of us have. I still see it in the business world where people are overachieving, no, overworking, people pleasing. So let's say not setting boundaries with the clients. I had to let go of that. I had to let go of fear of failure. I had to let go of um, fear of being judged and see all the limiting beliefs from childhood. Because when you become an entrepreneur, and especially if you in social media, on social media, you're going to expose yourself to potentially millions of people, to judgment, to criticism. I had people say to me, you should be put in jail, you
For
know
what?
for what I'm saying. For what I'm saying, I literally said my coach, radical forgiveness coach, healed one of my deep traumas. I had to give up my dog. That was a very deep trauma for me. And I went through 6 weeks of clinical therapy, which was just sorry, horrendous. Um, and it was like a tick exercise, unpractical, impractical advice. But I had one session with this radical forgiveness coach, and she got to the root of my guilt about my dog, and it had nothing to do with my dog, and I was blown away. This came from childhood, and then she showed me how this guilt, feeling of guilt of everything and me as a mother, was showing up in my life. And I'm like, holy shit, like I never looked at this in this way. I stopped crying. So I was crying for 6 months after I gave up my dog, because my dog was aggressive. He would bite my child, he would attack my child, and I had to protect both. And it was one of the toughest decisions I've ever had to make. But that made me cry every single day with guilt, like literally cry myself to sleep, and I couldn't stop. Even though my husband was like, he's gonna be okay. I'm like, I don't know, I feel so guilty. The guilt had nothing to do with my dog, because if you look at my husband, of course he was hurting, but he was able to deal with this guilt in a much different way, a logical way. For me, logic didn't help. I knew on logical level I've done the best I could, and I made the best decision for both my son and my dog. I'm absolutely, my dog is fine, right? He has a wonderful life now. But
Yeah.
the guilt, I couldn't let go. We got to the root of where that guilt came from, and it was in childhood. I was made to feel guilty all the time for everything that I was doing. And also it comes from religion. As a Catholic in the church, I'm not against, my Catholic religion. There's things that I don't agree with. They tell
Yeah.
you to feel guilty over everything. And then
Yeah.
to go to confession, oh, this is gonna ruffle some feathers. Then to go to confession and say, as a child, they tell you not to eat sweets. They tell you not to read magazines. They tell you not to watch TV. You know, certain things in Catholic religions I agree with,
Mm-hmm.
but there's
Yep.
this. It's making us feel guilty over everything, that we are sinners,
Yep.
right? But obviously now I went on to my deep spiritual journey, and I'm discovering, how the Bible was misinterpreted, and we're going quite deep here,
Yeah.
and realizing, the way I was taught religion and about God is wrong, is not how I understand it now. So that was a feeling of guilt that I carried on into every part of my life. Let's say if I said no to somebody wanted to see me and I said no, I'd feel guilty. So I ended up people pleasing just to not upset somebody, to then not feel guilty. I felt guilty as a mother. Most mothers feel guilty so much, like over everything to do with their children. We'll do one thing, we feel guilty. We'll do the opposite, we still feel guilty. So once I actually got to the root of that feeling of guilt, it
Mm-hmm.
has healed my guilt across my whole life.
Wow.
It's powerful, but we don't realize where it all comes from. That's why we have to get to the root. And most therapies don't look at that root. They don't connect it in such a spiritual way. In radical forgiveness, we look at line of life. If you're feeling
Mm-hmm.
continuously guilty, let's look at your life and the
Mm-hmm.
situation, like breaking points for you or big events that made you feel guilty, and we starting to put the puzzle pieces together, and it all makes sense in the end, and it absolutely for me just healed that feeling of guilt. If I went, let's say I went out to even get my hair done at the weekend for 3 hours, I would
Yeah.
sit there feeling guilty. I should be with my son. So when women need self-care, especially mothers, when we're
Mm-hmm.
looking after the children, we're working full time during the week, we don't go and look after ourselves enough, but when we do, we feel an enormous guilt that we should be with our children, you know? So let's get to the root of that guilt. It's not necessarily to do with that child. Let's look at where it came from, where it all started in childhood and how that carried into your adulthood. And I know how that worked for me. For 40 years, I was literally people pleasing and doing everything that others wanted me to do until I healed the root. Then I can go out now and not feel guilty about not seeing my boy. It may still like flash in my mind. I might feel like, oh, I miss him. I should be
Mm-hmm.
with it. But I shut it down because I'm like, I'm building my life to spend more time with him, and I do now. But I'm shutting down those feelings of, you know, I shouldn't be going and getting my hair done, or I shouldn't be going and, I don't know, doing something for myself. No.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gone. The guilt is gone. And that was the powerful thing for me. So somebody actually said, when I just shared that story, somebody said people like this should be put in jail because it can it can make others feel guilty if they're going through therapy, if they haven't healed their trauma in one session. And I'm like, oh, hold on a minute. I don't respond to those hate comments,
Mm-hmm.
but and I think what happens with people like this, they are being triggered by me.
Yeah,
So
of
we're
course.
all triggering each other. So that
Mm-hmm.
woman was being triggered by me. Something within her, within me as well, triggered something within her, if that makes sense. So I sent her love rather than hate and engage in a conversation she wouldn't fully understand. I was never saying this can definitely heal your trauma in one session. I was saying what it did for me, whereas I had
Yeah.
6 weeks clinical therapy, which did
Mm-hmm.
absolutely nothing for me.
But
Absolutely.
are you saying that radical forgiveness and the therapy that you went through that healed your deep seated wound, which is I'm not good enough, the guilt, was that all done within one session, or was it a series of sessions using a series of different techniques and modalities to achieve the healing and the
Yeah,
result,
it wasn't in
right?
one session. The deep trauma
Yeah.
and the feeling of guilt with about my dog,
Yeah.
that I stopped crying after one session because I was like,
Right.
okay, like this is massive. I've never looked at it in that way. So this is raising your awareness. This is how I start with the radical forgiveness process, is raising someone's awareness, and
Right.
then we end up going through specific tools and worksheets of radical forgiveness. We look at, as I mentioned, I do 3-part letter, which is about releasing emotions, strong
Right.
emotions. And part of the process of radical forgiveness one of the stages is reframing the story. So as I mentioned, about stepping out of the victimhood mentality, but part of the process is to be heard from a victimhood point of view. So me
Right.
as a coach, I'll hear you as a victim, and then we frame that story. So that's another stage of radical forgiveness. We have to reframe that story because yes, somebody could have been hurt, right, on a physical level as a victim, you know, but radical forgiveness goes deeper. It's about believing that nothing bad has happened. And that can be very tricky to understand and get your head around when you
Mm-hmm.
start this process. But standard forgiveness is still admitting that someone has done you something wrong. Radical forgiveness, it's more spiritual. It's believing it was all meant to happen that way.
So is this when you're going through this process, this second part? So one is identifying, right? The second part is then framing, looking at it from two different angles, one of which is I am the victim, the other one is reframing it. When you're in that second part of the technique course, what would you call it? Method?
Process.
Process? Are we writing it down or are we discussing it?
And we write a letter to the person that's currently triggering us the most. And then
Right.
there's two more stages of that letter. We burn the
Yep.
letter. It's more
Right.
symbolic, but
Yep.
I hear you as a coach. So I hear you as a victim. What happened to you in the past? Let's say
Right.
a partner that's triggering you, you're writing a letter to him, but you don't
Yep.
read it to him. You read it to me. And I
Okay.
hear you as a victim. He has done me wrong. He's, pissing me off. He's doing this.
Yep.
Then the second letter, we start to reframe. We start to reframe and start to look at it in a more spiritual way, because what happened in the past, or even how that person's triggering you, it's your perception of the events. So I don't know
Right.
if you've heard that before. Nothing is good or bad. It's only our perception of that event.
Yes. Yes, I have.
So we need to start reframing to be like, this is your perception, and it's not to say that didn't happen.
I have heard of that. And I've also heard that our memory of an event is not the true event when the event occurred, because the brain is making things up as time goes on and it's adding different layers to it. So our memory is not really a true reflection, a true understanding of the actual event when it occurred, unless it was very intense or significant. Like, for example, you saw a man fall off the building. So I understand that it's from our perception, and then also as time goes on, it's not just our perception, but it's how the mind is also choosing to remember it. But that's right. My question is, but what if it was a significant thing that happened, and it was the way you're perceiving it is actually the way that it happened? There's nothing to, you can reframe it to help you with your healing, but the incident is what it is, essentially.
So let's say somebody was physically abused as a child. Let's
Right.
use that as an example. On a physical level, abusing a child is not okay, because most
Yeah.
of those things happen in childhood. So we always go back to childhood.
Right.
Our brain will often, and our nervous system will shut off certain events from the past to keep us safe. So sometimes, like you say, I completely agree with what you said, is our perception of that event, how we perceived it as a child,
Yeah.
right? But let's say a parent was abusive. On a
Mm-hmm.
physical level, that's not okay, right? That's not okay. On a spiritual level, we want to believe, and it's not condoning the bad behavior of that
Mm-hmm.
person, let's say mom or dad. I'm just using
Mm-hmm.
as a parent. It's not
Mm-hmm.
condoning the bad behavior, but it's forgiving them on a spiritual level and letting go and understanding that with their own programming, they didn't know maybe how to control their behavior. They had difficult childhood that made them that way.
Yeah.
And it's kind of accepting maybe what happened and letting go and forgiving them on a spiritual level, because on a standard forgiveness level, they still
Mm-hmm.
wronged us.
Right.
As a child, we just see it as black and white. Dad or mom beat me up. Goes deeper. What, radical forgiveness is like, what if things aren't the way we think they are, the way they seem? What if it goes deeper than that? So that's radical forgiveness allows us to go much deeper than the surface level of mom or dad beat me up or abuse. Under through the worksheets that we use in radical forgiveness, so there will be a self-forgiveness worksheet, because a lot of the time if somebody was abused, and it could be sexually abused, we feel guilty for not speaking up, for not standing up for ourselves. We have to let that go. Of, I didn't do something, I didn't say, I didn't want it, right? So we go through the process of forgiving ourselves, and
Right.
again understanding that that happened for a reason. And again, that's very tricky in cases like this, to accept those things happen for a reason. Yeah, I've gone through my own traumas in the past, so I know what I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
I'm not being a hypocrite here. I'm not going to go into details, but I know it's possible to completely let go and reframe that story. And reframing is, on a human level, it's hard for us to accept that nothing bad has happened if somebody abused me.
Mm-hmm.
But on a spiritual level, I choose to believe that all of it was part of my lessons, part of my plan, part of me getting back to myself, learning to set boundaries, right? Let's
Mm-hmm.
say, learning to set boundaries in the future. Because if we don't heal that root of what happened in childhood, it'll just keep on repeating with different people in our lives. They'll step, walk all over me because I'm not going to set boundaries. So let's say, example of a parent made a child feel not good enough. They never said they love them. That then goes into adulthood, craving that love from others, especially partners. Now, partner cannot give us the love that a parent should have given us. Right? This allows us to reframe the story, to think that just because mom or dad didn't show me the love doesn't mean that they didn't love me. Just because mom or dad didn't show me the love doesn't mean that nobody else will love me, that I'm unlovable. So we get to the root of, it doesn't mean that I'm not lovable. Anybody else can love me. I am a lovable person. So framing that story, just because as a perception, from a child's perception, that mom didn't love me, they didn't say they loved me, so nobody can love me. That's how we reframe that story. It gets trickier when somebody was abused. We have to then raise the awareness and go on a much deeper spiritual level, to understand.
So then how do we do that? So if we are going deeper, is there another method that comes into the mix?
No,
Or is it just writing? Do you just continue to write deeper?
no, so obviously we start with the letter. We heal the inner child. I start with healing your inner child, get into that little Renia who
Yeah.
was hurt. And most of the time, or every time to be honest, when I have a session, it takes the client back straight away. So let's say I'm saying, what you're struggling with right now, what's the feeling that you experiencing right now? And you'll say to me, I don't feel good enough. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to take you straight back to that exact moment in childhood where you seen yourself as a little girl and
Okay,
there's
I'm
a
going to stop you there. I'm
situation.
going to stop you there. So right there, I'm going to take you back to that very moment in childhood. How do you do that? Do you do that through hypnosis, through meditation,
It's almost
through
like
really?
meditation. I'm literally starting to ask a client, okay, what's the feeling that's showing up for you right now that's stopping you from moving forward, right? Or live what you want to live. Or let's say if it's a business owner showing up online, or
Yeah.
um and then I guide them. So you could call it a meditation, but I guide them through. Um,
Is it just asking more and more questions to get them to start thinking and questioning and giving you the answers? Is it
the
just that?
question is, when was it that you felt that, as far as you can remember, you felt the same feeling as a little girl or boy? Never fails to take someone straight back. They know exactly where they are. They can see the people around them. They can see the situation, what they're wearing. It's whether
Wow.
it's a meditation, it's just guidance to take them back to that root, right? And that's when we go through it. I guide them through connecting with those feelings as that little boy or girl. What was happening? Who made it not good enough? And then what we do is we actually starting to show love to that little girl or little boy, and making them feel safe, whatever they need to be felt loved. We
Mm-hmm.
connecting with that inner child as an adult. We hug them, we hold their hands, we saying the words that they've wanted to live. here the whole life, like I'm loved, I'm safe. But we actually want to forgive ourselves and apologize to that little girl and a little boy without feeling guilty. I'm sorry I didn't look after you. I'm sorry I didn't make you feel safe and good
Yeah.
enough. I'm sorry I didn't put you first, because most of the time, we put others first. We don't look after ourselves, especially as a mother, we'll always put children first. And we don't see that we need to look after ourselves first, because that will, if we're not okay, it's going to have a ripple effect on our children. But as mothers, it's such a difficult thing to do, to put yourself first and understand that. So we connect with that inner child, and make them feel loved, make them feel safe, that this is okay now. Because when you're being triggered in adulthood, it's that little girl or that little boy that needs loving, that needs safe, that feel safe and good enough. And that's why we take you back to childhood. So from that moment, we start to reframe that, because mom or dad didn't say they loved me, mom or dad criticized me, that doesn't mean that I'm not good enough. And through the process, it's usually around 12 sessions, I would say, that I client through, of deep work, of going through different worksheets, different tools to start reframing those stories and go on a much deeper level. The deepest level is the end 2 sessions, when we get to talk about mom and dad. That's the root, really. That's where it all started. So these are the radical forgiveness worksheets. Now, you can read a book, a radical forgiveness book, and there's a worksheet towards the end. It's probably outdated now. You can do the worksheets, but what I found is people who have done this, at least the ones I've spoken to, it's not going deep enough. It's not going deep enough for them to, and it helps, of course, but in my opinion, in someone like a coach who I've had to help me put the puzzle pieces together, to talk it through, to connect everything and go much deeper level. I feel like it's not deep enough to just do one worksheet. We have several different tools in radical forgiveness that we lead clients through to get to that end worksheet, which is the biggest breakthrough that we have, in our process of radical.
What are the other stages? There's
So
7. You
we've
said
got
7?
obviously initial. Yeah, there's different tools of radical forgiveness, but normally I lead the client through something called 7 steps of radical forgiveness. There's 13 steps of radical forgiveness, and that'll be used for different people. It could be your ex, could be a friend that's triggering you. And also we talk about mirror analogy. Mirror analogy. So if someone's triggering me, let's say a partner, and he's making me feel angry, I'm connecting with and using that mirror analogy. Why is he showing me? Why is he making me angry?
Yeah.
And I'm getting to the root of where that anger comes from. Most of the time, the anger has got nothing to do with my partner. It goes back to childhood. So what I've experienced myself, and every single customer, every single client I've worked with, when we're trying to focus on others and think, he's a dickhead, he's not doing what I want him to do. Now, when you go through the process that I lead clients through, that person changes most of the time without us actually telling them what we wanted them to do. They change as a ripple effect of me working on myself. So I always bring my clients back to themselves. When they saying, oh, my ex-partner is triggering me, he's an asshole, he's done this, he's done that, I'm like, bring yourself back to you. It's all about you. It's got nothing to do with them. He's just showing you what you need to heal within you. You might think he's a dickhead, and on a physical level, yes, he's doing something wrong. But if you actually go and read Jill's story in Radical Forgiveness book, and you can go on their website, Radical Forgiveness Institute in America. It's an official institute. You can download Jill's Radical Forgiveness story, Jill's story. It explains the process beautifully, how Jill is Colin Tippin's sister. Colin developed the method of radical forgiveness. And basically, she's in a loving relationship with her husband. All of a sudden, he starts acting differently. He starts triggering her. He starts ignoring her. He starts showing more love to his daughter rather than the wife. Now, he's never acted like this. And she's like, what the hell is going on? I'm going to leave him. He doesn't love me anymore. Through the process of radical forgiveness, Colin then explains to her how her husband is literally just showing to her that there's that little girl, that little Jill, who still needs that loving that she didn't get from the partner, from the parent.
So in that instance, how does it go from the relationship being so perfect with Colin and the partner to all of a sudden one day Colin just deciding for no apparent reason that he's going to trigger the little wound in Jill? Is that because the universe knows that Jill hasn't done the work? Is that what it is? Is it a test from a much higher
Yes, so
place?
these are the lessons. Yes, so Colin is Jill's sister.
Oh,
Colin is Jill's brother. Colin developed the method of radical forgiveness. Jill is
right,
his sister, and she comes to him and she's like, something's going on with my marriage. It's been perfect up until that point. He was acting like a perfect husband, and he's
right,
doing this. He starts to explain the process to her of radical forgiveness. He's like, are you open to see that there's more happening here under the surface than what you think? On a physical level, you think, my husband suddenly, I think he was, I forgot the name. He starts to act differently. He starts to trigger me, ignore me, make me feel not loved, And he's never done this before. This is a lesson. Her husband is only showing her, so he's her healer, he's her teacher, and he's not actually, this is why it goes so deeper. He's done nothing wrong. He's doing nothing wrong. He's only, it goes more spiritual. Contract, he was always going to do that to her to help her heal and get back to who she truly is. So heal that inner girl who wasn't loved, who was ignored. So that all of a sudden it just shows onto the surface in her life that she still hasn't healed that, even though they had a better relationship. Because in the story, it explains that Jill had an ex-partner who was cheating on her. Now Colin says to her, he's your healer. And she's like, what the hell? I'm supposed to be grateful to my ex who was cheating on me? And he's like, yes, because he was only showing you that you are not, you have to take responsibility for your own healing, that you allowed him to treat you that way,
can I just
that
add?
you didn't set.
Can I just add to that though? Because I think some people listening to this may think, and I guess it's different for everyone, and it depends on the relationship and the circumstance and the situation that you're referring to. But if someone is treating you, in a way that's unlawfully or mishandling you or cheating on you in this instance, you can, how do I say this? You can forgive them and be grateful for the lesson and be like, thank you so much for showing me what it is that I needed to work on. And I'm so grateful for that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be so grateful in a way where you're encouraging and allowing for more and not having boundaries, right?
Forgiveness process is not condoning bad behavior on a physical level. If, let's say, we're talking about sexual abuse or rape, that
Yeah.
person may need to be taken to court, because
Yeah.
we have laws. So it's not
Yeah.
condoning that they've done okay, but on a spiritual level, to let go and understand and reframe the story. It's not to actually make you think that didn't happen, but it's to
Yeah.
make you think that happened for a reason, and
Yeah.
to teach you to set boundaries. And it's, again, very tricky. We're using a very tricky example, and I understand this can trigger lots of people and think, why is she saying that rape is okay or sexual abuse is okay? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying on a physical level, if somebody's
Yeah.
being hurt in such a way, they need to be kept accountable. But what that's teaching us as well, to learn to set boundaries. And it's not to feel guilty that I've allowed this situation to happen to me. So we let
Yeah.
go of guilt through self-forgiveness, but
Yeah.
it's showing us, let's not ever allow a man to treat us that way, because I teach about law of attraction as well as radical forgiveness. What is within us will attract. So if we feel not good enough, if we feel like we're being disrespected all the time and we don't heal that, we're going to continuously attract the partners that will continue disrespecting us. Why do women attract the same type of partner and allowing this behavior when, and this is, I actually got shut down by Instagram for saying things like this, because people misinterpret, they misinterpret what I'm saying, and it goes, on a much deeper level. I'm not saying this is okay. And
No.
it triggered probably a lot of people where they shut me down twice already. because someone I think complained about or reported me, that I'm saying that it's okay, we're responsible for what happens to us. In a way, I'm saying yes, we are responsible, and radical forgiveness process allows us to take that responsibility for our own life. Law of attraction says we create our reality. Now that's difficult to understand when it comes to something like sexual abuse. You know, somebody might say, I did not attract this sexual abuse. So that's very tricky to understand, and I'm not saying that we should condone that behavior, absolutely not. But it goes deeper on a spiritual level to understand why we attracted that situation, why we allowing, you know, and teaching you how to set boundaries, how to feel good enough so we don't attract that situation into our life. So we stop attracting, you know, I had bad relationships in the past where I've been mistreated on a really bad level. I allowed it in a way because, you know, without feeling guilty now, I allowed it because I didn't take responsibility for my own healing.
Do you think that we are drawing these different characters in based on our internal makeup?
Well, I would say it's energy.
It's
Energy
energy.
more than anything. We vibrate on a specific frequency. If I'm and it's like a radio, dialing into a radio
Yeah.
frequency. If you're on a radio, like heart radio in the UK, right? There's a heart rate. No, let's say negative radio. Okay, call that negative radio. If I'm on a negative frequency, I will only attract people into my life who are on the negative frequency, because they can't, people who are calm on a calm radio cannot see my frequency. They cannot dial into it. And this actually connects to broadcasting. When I used to work with satellites, we had certain frequencies. In order for an engineer to downlink the feed from the satellite, they need to have a specific dial into specific frequency. If they don't, if they get a digit wrong, they
Yeah.
cannot see the feed. They cannot, you won't be able to watch the feed on TV. So we
How do you
attract, you know, yeah.
how do you raise your frequency?
Gratitude, first of all, gratitude is one of the most powerful ways of raising your frequency. And the way I teach is not just being grateful for what's happening to me what's happened to me right now, what I've got. So let's say most people, I'd say 97% of people focus on the negative, and we give that energy every single day. Oh my God, the weather's crap. At work they doing this to me, and we acting from a victim point of view, right?
Yeah.
We cannot be grateful for things. Practicing daily gratitude, which is how I start my day, is being thankful, writing 5 things that I'm thankful for that I already have. So finding, if you're struggling, if you're in a negative frequency, negative mindset, initially you may struggle to find something to be grateful for, because you're not in a habit of seeing the positive in any challenging situation or even in your life. So for example, somebody drove into my car the other day, and the way I responded, not overreacted, I was like, it's okay. My son was standing next to me, the car was parked, and the lady drove into it, whether she misjudged, you know. I didn't shout. I wasn't in a negative frequency. So my nervous system is so regulated in those instances where I'm not shouting. I had someone shout at me when somebody went into the back of me 20 years ago, into my car, and I went into the back of a girl in front of me. I didn't shout at the guy that went into the back of me. I didn't know what happened. So how can I judge the situation? Maybe he's had a moment of, I don't know, a health reason, you know. The girl in front of me got out of the car. She started shouting at me. She started noting my registration number. Bear in mind, I was literally sandwiched in my car. I couldn't get out. She focused more on the, oh my God, my bumper's been damaged, and I couldn't actually move, and I passed out for a few seconds. Rather than actually be kind and try and help another human, she was focusing on the negative and what's happening to her. So like how I responded to the guy going to the back of me, right? I was calm and kind because I didn't know the full story. So I chose to stay calm. What I decided to be grateful for in that instance, because of that accident, I found out I had prediabetes because I actually passed out. So the ambulance came, they tested my sugar levels. If that hasn't had happened, I might have not known that I need to go to hospital and I'm pre-diabetic. You know, I chose to see the good in the bad. So look at the difference of how that girl responded and how I responded to the event. And it's very powerful, and we then live in a much easier and happier way. It's still not condoning, okay, it's okay to smash into someone's car. We still have to take it through insurance and make a claim, but it doesn't serve me or anybody else to be shouting and responding that way. So I learned to be grateful and see the good in every situation. When we struggle into see any positivity in our life, we can be grateful for a lovely cup of coffee, grateful for the home, even if we don't love our home right now. If it's not what we want, let's be grateful that we have a home and roof over our heads, because a lot of people don't, right? And then I teach to get really clear on the goals of where we want to go in our life, because most people don't know where they want to go. And we use a lot of attraction tools, like being grateful in the present tense for what I have, what I haven't yet achieved, if that makes sense. So let's say I want more freedom in my life. I'm writing it as a gratitude. Part of my daily gratitude is I'm happy and grateful for having the freedom in my life to go and travel the world with my son without having a boss to answer to. So I'm tricking my mind in a way, my subconscious mind, and I'm reprogramming my subconscious mind, because subconscious mind doesn't know what's true. Whatever we tell it, so if I tell it every day, I wake up, I'm like, I'm tired, I'm so tired, I'm so tired. I'm literally just getting more tired, because we all energy, by telling myself and everybody else, I'm so tired. And it's about, let's say, people, I went to a talk by David Dr. Hamilton, who talks about the power of visualization. And it's backed by science now that people have healed their bodies through visualizing only. People have grown muscles by visualizing only. So this shows you how powerful visualization is. So if we can use...
Talk to us about, because I feel like you're a ball of knowledge, and if I need to stop you at points to understand what some of these, how to actually approach some of these methods. So when you say, because I'm fascinated by visualization, how do you approach visualization, and how long do you do it for? And is there a certain time in the day that you need to do it? Morning, evening? Because I've been told that the brain starts to marinate thoughts and images when you go to sleep. So
Now, there's no one right answer for every single person, because we need to do it when it suits us. So for example, I do most of my visualizing in the morning, because I wake up 2 hours before my son does. Otherwise, I don't have that time alone. I need that time to, I sit in silence for 10 minutes when I wake up. I then visualize. I then write. I do a lot of writing, because when you put your goals and dreams and gratitude into paper, it's way more powerful, more visual as well.
Really quickly on that note, because you touched upon it, and otherwise I'll forget. What's the difference between typing it out on a Word doc on your computer and writing it on paper?
I mean, I personally have always been like a paper person. I even have paper calendars, I'm old school. I think...
Does it make a difference though? Is there something about the energy with the pen and the paper and writing, or no?
I think so. I pick a really nice pen, a really nice notepad, and it's a ritual. For me, it's a ritual, right? I'm making that time and space for myself. I'm then physically writing it out. And now people don't realize that what I do in the morning, they think you just write in those lines in the morning, right?
Yeah.
And it's personal choice. If you want to type it up on the computer, whatever works for you, it's better to do that than not do it at all, right? But it goes much deeper. It's not just about writing about your goals. It's very important to know where you're going, because most people don't know where they're going. They just surviving and waiting until retirement and dying, and that's it. And, when you have goals, clear goals, when that fear kicks in, you're using that as a focus of where I'm going. So me as a coach, I know where my business is going, or roughly have an idea where I want to be, right? I don't need to know how I'm going to get there, but I'm just focusing on that. What it does, this everyday routine that I have, is the discipline.
Okay.
What a lot of people, and even new entrepreneurs, I notice are missing, is the discipline and not sticking to it. So we're creating a habit of For me, it works to wake up in the morning. I know people that visualize and do their work in the evening or afternoon. Now, ideally, you'd visualize before you go to bed as well, but do whatever works for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you get up every day at 5 o'clock when that doesn't work with your schedule. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm a more awake in the morning, I'm more energetic in the morning once I'm awake than at night. So at
Mm-hmm.
night, my brain doesn't work as well. So yes, we should be doing it twice a day, but it takes me about 45 minutes, the whole thing in the morning, to be writing about my goals.
Okay. And
What
the
it then
visual,
does as well, yeah,
sorry. And
no, no, go
the
on.
visual, and the visualization method, like, is there a way that you is there a do it? Like, I've heard 5 minutes of focus on just one thing and it amplifies the manifestation. Is that what you do? Is it enough to just do it for 5 minutes? Anything above that is a bonus. Like,
What so people that manifest, I see a lot of people who manifest, they think just affirming something and thinking about it is going to help them achieve their goals, their dreams, right? That's not enough.
right.
If you know Neville Goddard talks about the feeling is the secret.
Yep.
The secret is getting into the feeling and stepping into that version of yourself. So it's a process. I teach how to get into that version of yourself that's already achieved those goals. So we create, a script of yourself that's already achieved all of the dreams. So we're getting into the feeling of how does that person feel like. So for me, and also, what does your life look like when you've already achieved all of your dreams? And we're getting into the feeling. So the most important thing is the feeling. So you can be sitting there and visualizing for half an hour, but if you're not really feeling it, it's not going to do much. Now,
Mm.
I do it when I wake up. I'll have my shower, I'll come down, and for 10 minutes I sit in silence. That's when I do my visualization. So I will literally focus for 10 minutes a day, and there is no perfect time. There's so much of advice out there. It's whatever works for you, as long as you can get into the feeling of I'm there. So we kind of creating, like, first we creating this script, this goal, a script around your perfect life, your perfect day. And then we writing about it as well. And then once you have that image in your head, when you're visualizing, it's about having this like a movie clip in your head and getting yourself into. So in my movie, I know exactly where I'm standing. I'm in a specific hotel. I don't know why. It just came to me when I was building my dream. I'm in a specific luxurious hotel and I'm standing and looking over a specific area in that hotel. And I'm getting into the feeling of I have my freedom, money's no problem, nothing's, there's no limits. Like I can travel the world with my child, working less and earning more, and things like that. I'm a present mom. So I connect with the feelings. So it's more about the feelings rather than what you see, and if that makes sense. But everyone's different. Whatever works for you. As I said, to do 5 minutes is better to not do anything at all. Neville Goddard, I think there's a video on YouTube somewhere where it teaches about 4 minutes visualization, how powerful that can be a day. And yes,
Yeah.
it will be helpful if you do that as a last thing before you go to bed. Ideally, you do this in the morning, you do this at night. The more you do it, the better. So often people will just do it, and I've been guilty of that. They'll do it in the morning, right? Do their routine in the morning. Throughout the day, they'll forget about it and just lock into whatever they're doing. Stop visualizing, stop getting into that feeling. So in order to trick our subconscious mind, we need to visualize it as much as possible. You can literally set your timer on your phone every hour and give yourself even 2 minutes of literally taking yourself back to that moment of when I've already achieved everything that I want to achieve. What does that feel like? For two
But then
minutes every hour.
I've also heard that if you it's like if you want something too much, it blocks it from coming. Or
Yeah, so it's
is that because you're thinking about it from a place of lack or
yes.
not?
So
It is.
yes, so that's why we do everything we want to let go. So yes, we can visualize and get into the feeling, but as if you've already got it. not in that desperate, like, when is that going to happen? Because a lot of people will be like, oh, it hasn't happened yet. It's about building that faith and the belief that it's going to it's already happened.
But
So that's the trick.
how do you get yourself to believing it's already happened if it's something that you're trying to manifest that you've never had? How do you do that?
So yeah, I've actually heard that recently. So when we don't have any reference
Yeah,
point, how would I feel that like as a wealthy person or as a healthy person if someone's unwell?
yeah,
You know, try and maybe look online or try and see a clip of someone who's wealthy, or I don't know, try and find somebody that already has it. What does their life look like? And try and I think it was that Dr. David Hamilton that shared it on that talk recently the other day, and it was somebody didn't have a reference point. I don't remember whether that was about being healthy. I think, or it was himself. I don't remember the exact example what he needed to achieve. Oh yes, it was about him playing golf. Yes, that's it.
yeah,
He wanted to play golf and he was really bad at it. So he
right,
started visualizing himself as a, I'm great at playing golf, but he said, I've never been good at playing golf. So how can I know what that feels like? The
right,
best he could do, he started to watch, I don't remember who it was, but somebody who was amazing at playing golf. And he literally watched that clip over and over and over again of that person, I think hitting a ball or something. I might be butchering that story, but
yeah,
hopefully you get the picture
yeah,
of somebody actually doing that and being, hitting a ball and I don't know, getting it in the hole or whatever. And he
yeah.
watched it over and over again in like few-second clip and retrained his brain to think that he's doing that. That was the closest he could get to getting into that feeling because he didn't have a reference point. So let's say for me, I didn't have that reference point. Okay, what's the person that's already have that already has that freedom, and what does she feel like? I watched my mentor who already had the freedom. She had different life, but I tried to like have a reference points of the people that already have the life that I want, right? And then once I remember the exact moment when I achieved the highest level of gratitude I've ever had in my whole life. I was waking up and I was literally emotional with gratitude. And so now I have a reference point whenever I don't feel that way. I know how to get into that feeling, right? But I had to just trick my mind over and
Mm,
over again. It's by repetition how we trick the subconscious mind to believe I already have it. So
that's so
the
true.
easiest way is starting with that clip, like what's that clip in my mind? And as I said, for me, I know exact, and that by repetition, I can take myself back into that moment of I'm standing in this hotel room. I know exactly where the hotel is. Sorry, in a hotel. I'm standing above the water. I'm looking at the sunrise. I know what I'm wearing. I know how I'm feeling, what my hair looks like. So we're getting into the details of that
Yeah.
movie clip, and
Uh-huh.
then I'm trying to think, okay, if I asked you, how would it feel like, whatever your dream is, if you've already achieved it, what would that feel like for you? Even if you don't know, what would that feel like? That freedom that you can live your life on your terms, and perhaps you do already, and not answering to your boss. Money was no object. You can go anywhere in the world you want. You can work from anywhere you want. You helping loads of people all over the world change their life. How would that feel like? I think
Mm.
anybody can try and imagine.
Do you know, now that I think about it, the more that you talk and the more descriptive you are with how you would bring this into the material world, how you would manifest it, I find that when you haven't had the experience of the thing that you're after, picking up a novel with the same storyline to the one that you're trying to create and getting lost in the storyline, in the words, because you don't know what that looks like. So you put yourself in the storyline. And as you're reading it, this story is unfolding, which is creating the emotion. And then you're putting yourself in the story because you don't know what the characters look like. It's a book. And that helps to really amplify the
Yes. If you
manifestation.
can model yourself on somebody that already has a life, and maybe you don't want the life in the exact same way, so you can
Yeah,
pick different things from different people that, let's say, you aspire to, who have the life that you want. Start observing them and analyzing, what do they act like, what do they walk like, what do they
yeah,
sound like, what lifestyle do they have, what they do, and where they going on holiday. And we get into, that's why it's so important to get into those details and get
yeah,
so specific. And that's why I spend so much time writing about it every day, because the more you write it, the more it becomes so freaking clear where you're going, and you tricking your subconscious mind. I'm already there. Like, I'm already
mm,
there. So when outside circumstances are telling you, oh my God, my world is like crashing all over me, I'm like, no, but I've already achieved all my goals. I know it sounds crazy, but when
no,
I launched my business,
yeah,
right, I was like, I quit my corporate job and I was like, I'm going to launch my business. I gave myself like a couple of months of like, let's just, rest and take my time. And then literally 4 weeks before Christmas, I was like, in 2 weeks' time, I'm running an event. Now, never spoke publicly. I sang publicly many, many years ago, but I never spoke publicly. What I did to achieve what I did is, in 2 weeks' time, I'm gonna run an event. I hired my friend's restaurant, and everybody was telling me, like, or not everybody, some people were saying, how are you gonna run an event before Christmas? In 2 weeks' time, like, who's gonna come? Who's got the money before Christmas? And I'm like, no, I know where I'm going. I already seen myself at that event, speaking publicly, people coming and thanking me for such a wonderful workshop. And right, I kid you not, everything happened in the same way. So when I got that script of me speaking publicly, I was confident, everything was flowing, it was easy. And I listened to this script because I recorded myself reading it to myself. Like, and it sounded something that, just an example, I'm a successful coach and I'm powerful, I'm confident, clients can't wait to work with me. I attract, high quality clients every single day. It goes like this, like, I'm an amazing mother, I'm a supportive wife. So we get into the feeling. Feeling is the secret, right? And I
mhm,
listen to this script every single day on my walk, and as much as possible. If fear kicked in, if I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, I've never run an event, no one's gonna come. I'm like, pop the headphones in, listen to my script, right? And I visualized myself. So this is where for those 2 weeks, every morning I visualized myself in that room, in that restaurant, speaking to people. I knew what I was wearing, everything was planned, but I didn't even prepare for my speech, right? I had some sort of like guide, but when it came to an event, it just flowed, right? It flowed beautifully. I spoke. My friend, colleague that I worked with many years ago, she came to an event. She was like, I did not recognize you. She was like, from like years ago when we worked together, I don't know how you did that. Where did you learn this? And I'm like, I've never spoken publicly in my life. It was all in my mind. So I imagined it in my mind, and this is the power of imagination. I imagined everything, and I imagined clients buying my course that, by the way, I haven't even created at that point. So I
wow,
decided to launch my online business. I advertised locally in my Facebook local groups, communities, and I said, I'm running this event in 2 weeks' time. 17 people registered, 12 people turned up, and 6 people bought my course that I did not create. So at the point, I had an idea of the course that I was going to create, how many modules it's going to have. It's going to be 12 week. It's going to cost this much, but I haven't created the course. So I decided to, and this is what I've been taught in my high performance mentorship. I was being taught, don't create something and spend months creating it when you might not even have customers to buy it, or people don't want to buy it. Sell an idea and then create it. Find customers and then create it. So 6 people bought my course, and then I decided after Christmas, I then picked my platform, I built the modules, and the way the school platform is I was releasing each module every week. So every week I was creating a new module. As I already started the course, I already had the money for the course. So, I mean, to some people it's mind-blowing how that happened, but I just used visualization. I got very clear on what I wanted. how much money I wanted to make. I just wanted to make my previous corporate salary in 1 month, which pretty much I did in that 1 month or less than a month.
So my question to you is, if there's a woman out there that's listening to you now and she feels she's doing all the right things, but for some reason she might be a little stuck or she's not as aligned with where it is that she wants to be. She wants to do something like what you've just explained then. You made it happen.
Yes.
You manifested it, you brought it into fruition, you didn't even have the course, you found a way around it, you sold it before it was even created, and then you actually made, how much was it again?
It was like $4,000.
That's quite an achievement. So if there's someone listening out there right now and they are feeling, like I mentioned, they're stuck, they're not in alignment, they're trying to manifest and bring their desire into fruition, what advice would you have for them?
Get clear on what you want from life. Let go of those limiting beliefs that are stopping you from like achieving what you want in life and living and thriving, not surviving. Because when you are aligned, we attract things rather than chase clients. And I go through stages of being aligned and misaligned. I'm being very transparent here. It's a ongoing work every single day. This never ends, right? And most people are not prepared to do that work. They're not prepared to do the basics because they think, what's the writing lines, every single day. It means more than you think. Getting clear on your goals, where you're going. Like, how do you want your life to look like? If you're a successful businesswoman, and let's say you're making money but you burnt out, we get to the root of why you're burning out. Are you not setting boundaries? Have you built your business just to make money? Is it a purpose-led business? So we can look at how do you want to live, and then we reverse engineer how you want your business to look like. So let's say I know business owners that are overworking because they can't say no to the clients because of the fear of not having the money, of losing the clients. So they over agree to things. Whereas I'm very firm right now when I'm setting my appointments is like, this is when I'm working. I'm not doing that evening. I'm not working at the weekend because that's my sacred time with my family. I'm getting clear on my goal and on my values. My values is all coaching and helping others, but it's also family time. So I'm finding that balance, and it's very difficult to be like, don't say no, to say no to a client, to be like, I'm not available that time at the risk of losing the client. So it's getting to the root of that fear of why you're scared, why you're in that lack mentality, and believing that the right clients you'll attract the right clients. When we're in alignment, we attract things naturally, and it's in a much easier way. Life is challenging, business is challenging, but so is staying in that 9 to 5. If you're not happy, or you're feeling guilty, or you're not seeing your children enough, there is another way. But it's getting over that fear, getting clear with your goals. How do you want to live your life? If there were no limits, the money was no object, how would your life look like? I know it sounds maybe crazy. How much money would you be making if there's no limitations? What would you spend that money on? So we get clear on how do you want your life to look like? And on those limiting beliefs that are stopping you from going after your goals, from changing your life, letting go of that fear of failure. Be open to failure, because through failure we learn and we grow.
Yeah.
And
I
we're so
love
scared
that.
of failing because we're gonna be not, we will feel not good enough if we fail. What will people say? Well, screw what people say. I have my goal. I know where I'm going. They still stuck here behind me in their nine
Yeah.
to five being unhappy. I know where I'm going, so it doesn't matter what they're saying. But I know this is easier said than done. That's why the radical forgiveness work is so powerful, because it allows you to be like, and again, it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
And perhaps that's why a lot of people are nervous to go through this process, because they don't understand. They're scared of, I don't want to dig up my past, but they don't realize that this is the best way to heal, to face your fears,
Freedom.
to get to that root.
Yeah. It's digging up the past and doing the internal work and going down to the seed level, as painful as that maybe for some, it's also freedom.
And we think about financial and time freedom, but what about mind freedom?
Yeah. Well,
We
yeah,
are
exactly.
the prisoner of our own mind when you think about negative people. And I used to be negative. I come from Poland where despite, people are really hospitable and friendly, the
Yeah.
society is really negative. They consumed by the news, they consumed by the politics. Everyone's quite negative. I couldn't live in that culture anymore. And I'm not negating my culture
Yeah.
or trying not to negate my culture, but I chose to take responsibility for my life, for my mindset, and my personal development. I don't want to live in that negativity because the environment is so important. Who you surrounding yourself with is so important. If you surround yourself, like, who do you tell about your goals? If
Yeah.
you tell goals to the person that's stuck in this system and the programming, they're gonna be like, when I was quitting my job, luckily nobody told me. My partner, my husband was scared, obviously,
Yeah.
understandably. I was quitting a well-paid career to going after the business I've never achieved before.
Yeah.
Most people would be saying, "Are you out of your mind? Like you leave in a secure job, a well-paid job, like to do what? And you think you're gonna achieve it?" But I'm like, screw you lot. I know where I'm going. I'm gonna achieve it. I'm not listening to it. So it's be careful who you share your goals with
Yeah.
and who you surround yourself with. Are you surrounding yourself with the people that raise your vibration? Because that's so important. And yesterday, me and you spoke about how lonely entrepreneurship can be.
Yeah. So
And
lonely.
you have to keep yourself accountable. It helps to have a mentor, it helps to have a coach to guide you, but they can't do the work for you. They can guide you, but you're going to have to put the work in. You're going to have to take responsibility for your actions or your inactions. But I try and surround myself with the people and share my goals with the people that will understand. Other entrepreneurs, the people that achieved what I want to achieve, who already have the lifestyle that I want to have. Because if you speak to someone who's still in 9 to 5 job, they'd be like, "Don't quit your job. Are you crazy? You're not gonna earn the money. You're not gonna," like they were saying, not many people, because they knew how ambitious I am, that when I set my mind to something, I'm gonna achieve it. So nobody really told me like, "Don't quit your job." They were like, "We believe in you." So that was what we're saying.
When do you think, as an entrepreneur, what's a sign that you're ready to go all in on your business?
So I personally would not advise, that's my personal experience and I'll explain why. I would not
Yeah.
advise for someone or for everyone to go and do what I've done. You need to be extremely aligned, and I really, really was so locked in. But
Yeah.
then we spoke about it yesterday. I got hit by a perimenopause. And I'm not
Yeah.
going to sit here and just blame what happened with my business after, because it has had an effect on my business massively when I
Yeah.
started to go through perimenopause. Everything was going great with my business. I was running my course, I've earned the money, I launched it, before I even created it. I was like, this shit works. And then boom, menopause happens. My personal and I had to then go through the process of dealing with that while still trying to run the business. When, if anyone who's watching this has gone through perimenopause, it is hard. It is like, I've never been hit by anything like this in my life. I did not recognize myself. I tried to use all the tools that I had and I really struggled. I tried to not give it energy and ignore it, but that was really hard when you're feeling so exhausted. It's extremely hard. And I'm not saying this will happen to everyone. It happened to me. It's part of my journey. And I choose to use that as a lesson. I don't regret quitting my corporate world. Absolutely not. It was all meant to happen like this.
Yeah.
However, I would say the most important thing is to work on yourself first. So
Mhm.
you can actually finance that work, because of course it's not free. If I could do it for free, I would. If money was no object, I'd do this for free because I freaking love it. And I know
Yeah.
how powerful those tools are, but we all have to pay the bills. I have a family. So I, for example, started working on myself, but I literally decided to stop getting my hair done, stop doing my nails, stopped looking after, like, not stop looking after myself, but I see a lot of people focus on the external beauty when internally they really unhappy and miserable and insecure. And I'm not saying don't look after yourself. I'm saying see what the priority is here. And I do 100% believe that the priority is the internal alignment.
Yeah.
And then, do those things that you want to do, because I've experienced this in the past. I was, spending money on, getting my nails done, loads of nice clothes. Internally, I was so miserable and insecure. I wanted the external validation, and I got myself, into debt in the past for all sorts of different reasons. But part of it was like trying to make myself feel better externally rather than work on myself internally. So
Uh-huh.
I would say to a person who's still in a 9 to 5 job to work on themselves first, because I knew that when I quit my job and I'm not as resilient as I need to be, because become an entrepreneur and what you're going to face as an entrepreneur, it is hard. My God, there's going to be bigger challenges. When you think when you got money, you're going to have less problems, that's not the case. You're going to have bigger problems. So let's become more resilient so you don't, and get clear on your goals, right? But then imagine life happens like what happened to me with the perimenopause. I decided to go all in and, go into it full time because I thought if I split my energy, I will not be able to focus on it so much, right? I'm not going to achieve my success 100%. But I was working full time. I was training in radical forgiveness. I had a young son. My husband was going away every single week. I ended up taking on clients in the evenings once my son's gone to bed. Then I went into law of attraction study, like thinking into results by Bob Proctor, and I was mentored by his top consultant. I was doing all of that on top of a full-time intense broadcasting job. I was burning myself out, but I knew that I have to do all this work before I quit my job, because there will be so many lessons and challenges, and the universe will bloody test you. It will test you all the time. How bad do you want this? So I would say, personally, if somebody can start building the income, right, but work on yourself first. This is the most important thing, is do the inner work, become more resilient.
You mentioned something a few moments ago that you keep seeing this popping up more and more today. And I don't know if that's because the world that we live in has become so fast paced. But you mentioned burnout and juggling all these different balls in the air, and how that showed up in a moment like that. How does you manage that? How does the Rania leader show up to be like, wait, hold on a second, but something has to, we have to shift something here. We can't allow for that to come up again. Or do you see it before it happens?
Well, as
And
an entrepreneur or work as an
as
entrepreneur or
a
working.
either, both actually. Have you experienced burnout as an entrepreneur or no?
Yes and no, because it's a different type of burnout. So this is the tricky part of balancing. Excuse me, balancing. We should be working more on our mindset than
Yeah,
actually doing the strategies. We focus, and myself included, I'm such a strategist. I'm
yeah,
like, I've got to do this funnel, I've got to do this, rather than actually focus on my energy.
yeah,
Because if you talk to a client and your energy is desperate and you've got no money in the bank, they will feel
yeah,
your energy. We
right,
all made out of energy.
yeah,
And so the internal work and the internal alignment is more important than the strategies, right? And this is the tricky part, to balance both. So for me, it's forever balancing. When I was going through menopause and I was absolutely shattered, and my mind just wasn't there. I couldn't create content. I was really like, I don't know what I'm doing. I listened to my body in that time, and it was really tricky because I'm like, but I've got to make the money. I've got to keep
yeah,
going. I listen to my body, and in my coaching, I teach about. I touch on a little bit about total biology and how our bodies are telling us and giving us
mhm,
signals. We're just not listening. We decide to ignore it, and we pop a pill, a painkiller, and we carry on in this fight or flight mode.
yeah,
I wouldn't say I've been burnt out as an entrepreneur. I've been tired, but it's different
yeah,
tired, because when you aligned, you will work, you will have more energy.
right,
Um,
Is that
You will
passion?
have more energy.
Is it passion or is it
It's
energy, or
this,
is energy and passion the same thing?
they're not the same thing, but I would
Okay.
say that's why it's so important to get and build a business based on your passion, not just like for making money. Because in the past, I've always had this entrepreneurial mindset. I wanted my own business, and I nearly launched like a candle business. I love candles, right? But
Yeah.
as I was doing it, my husband was really supportive, but I was like, I don't think this is my passion yet. I don't think this is going to change the world yet. It needs to be bigger,
Yeah.
and it needs to be more meaningful. That's why the radical forgiveness I came across it, obviously, as my own experience, and I was like, this is it, because I started to talk about it. So if I asked you, what is it that you can't stop talking about every single day that you could do
Yeah.
for free if money was no object? For me, it's radical forgiveness and personal development and law of attraction. We spoke for hours yesterday, but I I experienced this. I had more energy sleeping less because I was so aligned. But it's a very difficult balance.
So do you think that if you are more aligned and you are following your passion, you're not as likely to get burnt out?
Yes, but it is about the balance of take the time out to be quiet, to be silent before you need it. So, with the trick that I had at the beginning of my business, or as I started to go through this perimenopause, um, I used to take a day out to myself every Friday. And then so you could be looking at your bank account and your bank account is like, shit, I need to keep bringing more customers. That's a lack of mentality, by the way. How can I take a day off when I need to keep getting, bringing money in? But it's understanding that, taking that time out to myself, because when we in burnout, whether we in 9 to 5 job and as a mom, we running around doing all the school drop-offs, bedtimes, working full time, doing all the school events and everything, we don't have time to sit down and actually think and get off the hamster wheel, because we don't have time to sit down to think, what do I want from my life? Do I really want to live like this? And we don't even understand that there's another way. So it's helpful to have someone show us the way, that there is another way, but it's the alignment will mean taking the time out to yourself. So actually put that in a schedule once a week to not burn yourself out. But most people will experience this fear of, I need to keep going, I need to work on my business. And I've done that. And it's a forever challenge every single week to be like, all right, when I'm noticing and I'm tense, I sit in silence. That's the best thing I can do every single day. If I'm more
Yeah.
tense by afternoon, I do another 10 minutes in silence, and I
Mhm.
either visualize and I connect with what's going on in my mind. What are the thoughts that I'm observing? So I start to be an observer of my own thoughts. Then I know where I need to realign myself.
So having a balance between business and what needs to be done with work that needs to be carried out, and spirituality, essentially checking in with
Yeah. And
yourself.
it's a tough balance. It's a tough balance, especially as a new entrepreneur and maybe you're not making consistent income. It's a tough balance to not step into that fear and balance that
Yeah.
fear. But that's what, for me, it helps to keep on focusing on where I'm going, my goal, visualize. So when that fear kicks in, I'm just like, okay, no, this is where I'm going. Forget the fear, forget what's going on in my bank account, forget what's going on outside me, what are people saying. And it's difficult when you've got person around you or people around you. That's why environment is difficult. But when it's a partner, it's obviously quite tricky. And they're not in your mind. They're not as maybe aligned to
Yeah.
not allow for that fear to overtake your feelings, right? That's the trick. That's why I say environment is really important. Surround yourself by other entrepreneurs. Go to networking events surrounded by entrepreneurs. What are they doing? Because we can only learn from others. But I basically design my business, and I'm not there yet. I'm still building, I'm still expanding, and it changes all the time. So it's adjusting to change and being okay with that. Every 5 minutes I'm changing my direction, because it's part of the process, it's developing. But it's it's taking that, making sure that you do take time out to yourself to align with, okay, this is what's happening, where am I going next? And we, you know, in law of attraction, we don't need to know how we're going to get there. We just need to know where we're going. And if we keep on getting aligned and taking the time out to ourselves to be silent, to be like, you know, where do I go next? So, for example, when I sit in silence, I connect to the source and I do the download, you know, I'm like, okay. And this goes in touch with the Bible, as we spoke about it a little bit yesterday. The way I, you know, interpret the Bible now, as Neville Goddard does as well, and I've studied him in my mentorship as well. In the past, as a Catholic, they tell us to pray to God.
Yeah.
When we prayed to God when I prayed to God in the past, it was like, God give me this, God give me health. That's lack mentality. That's not believing that we're gonna be healthy. The way that we should be praying is, and when you read Neville Goddard, so The Power of Awareness, I don't know where that book is right now. There's a Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard. He interprets the Bible. He's got several books, but let's talk about this book. He talks about the power of imagination and that God wanted us to have everything. And we can have everything if only we believe. So the way to pray is to actually believe that you already have it. So if we keep on repeating that, if we keep on reprogramming our brain to believe that we already have everything that we want, right? Then we're gonna achieve it.
So does that mean that when you go into prayer, you're going into prayer with gratitude and thanking him for what he's already given you? Thank you for such a great
Yes.
day. Thank you for taking care of me and my family. Thank you for all the blessings that you've bestowed upon me, so on and so forth. As opposed to, can you give me this? Can you give me that? I don't
Yes.
have this. Can I have that? You're not doing that. You're
Yeah.
just going in with gratitude and thank. But you
And
know,
also expectation.
expectation.
Expectation. Expectation. So that's the other part of the gratitude, is being grateful for the things that I want in the future, but expecting that I already have them and believing that I've already got them. So I'm not in that desperate energy like you were talking about. I want this, but I don't have it yet.
So pretense, like as though it's already come.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then can you do that? Can you say that as you're praying to the creator, or is that more like journaling instead?
So
How
I
would
don't
that?
sit down and I say like, God, give me this, God, give me that.
Yeah.
I'm visualizing that I already have it.
Yeah,
And the
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
gratitude is one of the most powerful tools to raise your vibration first thing in the morning, because a lot of people will wake up and they'll grab a phone. Do you know I leave my phone outside of my bedroom every single day?
Yeah.
I don't have it next to me because as a habit, and I don't watch the news. I have no idea what's going on in the world unless somebody tells me.
Yeah.
And I don't want to know. And because I don't want to be fed by this negativity. And you might
Mm-hmm.
think, you know, I'm ignoring it. No, I don't need to know, because unless I can help those people directly, I'm not going to make that change, right? I want to focus on the positive things that are happening. And maybe
Mm-hmm.
people might perceive it as being ignorant. I don't really care, to be honest. That's how I choose to live my life. So I leave my phone outside of my bedrooms. First thing when I wake up, like I'll go in a shower and then I go downstairs and I'll start sitting in silence for 10 minutes and be like, okay, where am I at? And start visualizing and getting into the feeling of,
That's the most powerful time to do
yeah,
it, isn't it? Because we're in that. What's
yeah,
what's that mind frame that we're in, or what is it? The meta waves, or what are they?
yes, it's the delta, theta
Yeah.
waves. Theta waves are like when you go to sleep, when you're asleep,
Right.
almost asleep, but not really. There's delta. I
Yeah.
don't remember which one it is in the morning. It might be delta, but don't
Yeah.
quote me on this. I don't remember.
No, that's
Yeah,
okay.
100%. Yeah, so I have actually been trained in theta, but I haven't used it on clients yet because it hasn't resonated fully with me yet.
Wow.
So it's actually getting the customer into this, like, it's almost like a hypnosis sort of thing,
Yes. Yeah.
theta, to relax
Yeah.
them in on that deep level. So they're almost asleep, but they're still awake. It's
Awake.
very
Yeah.
powerful, yes.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah,
that's why
but
it's so important. That's why it's so important to be doing your meditation when you first wake up in the morning. So that's so smart of you to keep your phone outside of your room, because you pick up that phone when you're still in that
Yeah.
that frame of mind, you're almost like manifesting whatever comes up
Yeah.
first on your.
I think it was Mel Robbins that did a reel about it. She was like, you literally then being hit by negative information about the world, the news, somebody on your social media, somebody message you, it could be something negative. Like, why would you choose to set
Mm,
that vibration as you wake up? I'd rather focus on gratitude. I'd
mm-hmm.
rather be like, I'm thankful for this. So imagine how you actually setting yourself up for the day. And yes,
Yeah.
the day may be challenging, but the more you do it, and that's why what I do is a discipline, big part of it is the discipline to do this every day
Mm-hmm.
is because when I noticed when I wasn't doing it, my vibrations drop, my mentality changes, and women, a lot of moms say to me like, I haven't got time for this shit. And I'm like, well, wake up 2 hours before your child. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. If you want to change your life, no one's going to come and save you. Like
Yeah.
you're the only one that can change your life and can do the work. It is hard, but so is hard as staying in where you are if you're miserable. Because
Yeah.
before you realize you're going to be retired or you're going to be on your deathbed thinking, I wish I got up 2 hours before my child.
Yeah.
And I'm tired some days. I don't want to get out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning a lot of the time, but I'm doing my best every single day. And some days, like last night, my son woke up at 3 a.m. and, he didn't settle very well. So I bet I had probably 3 hours sleep, if anything. Do you think it was easy for me to get up in the morning? No. I notice if I don't do this routine and I don't have that quiet time to myself in the morning, I am so misaligned. I am so all over the place. I'm triggered by my son. I'm snapping at him. So for me, it is so powerful and it's so important to do that routine every day. Many people said to me like, "Oh my God, how do you do that? You work so hard every single day." Yeah, but it's a lot easier to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and then have a better day and be set up in a much easier way and deal with these challenges than wake up with negative attitude, be like, imagine your child is waking you up at 7:30. They're like, "Mommy," you're like, I'm so tired, and you're already giving that energy and this attitude to the universe. I'm so tired. You've not had time to drink a cup of coffee in silence, and for mothers, it's so freaking important. You've not had time to align, to connect with where am I at right now? Where's my mindset right now? You've not had time to
Mhm.
visualize your goals because for me, then whole day is intense. It's I work on my business after the school drop off. Then I pick my son up early from school. Then I've got him. I'm being present with him. I don't use TV during the day, during the week. I've banned that a few months ago. So I have to be present with my son. And then he won't go to bed until 9 o'clock sometimes, half 8, 9 o'clock. So only then after that I can, if I want to, go and work on my business. It takes work, but it's a lot harder to be stuck in this cycle that you feel like you just burnt out, you haven't got the passion for it anymore, you haven't got the time for yourself to look after yourself, you may have money but you might not have energy or you're not present. That's a lot harder, and we only get one shot at this life.
We do. And on that
Like
note,
we
on
get,
that
well, yeah.
on that note, I just want to say thank you for such a powerful and open, real and raw conversation, and agreeing to be on. Anyone that's listening that wants to connect with you and go deeper into the work that you do, where can they find you?
Oh, Instagram, my handle is Renia Fowler Coaching.
All right, perfect.
Amazing. Thank you so much.